Welcome to English 3 Literary Nonfiction Analysis, Quest 1, Module 1, where we'll dissect and examine rhetorical devices using annotation. The excerpt that we're going to use comes from In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. We'll go ahead and get started with Chapter 1, The Last to See Them Alive. The village of Holcomb stands on the high wheat plains of western Kansas, a lonesome area that other Kansans call out there. Some 70 miles east of the Colorado border, the countryside, with its hard blue skies and desert clear air, has an atmosphere that is rather more far west than middle west. The local accent is barbed with a prairie twang, a ranch hand nasalness, and the men, many of them, wear narrow frontier trousers, Stetsons, and high heel boots with pointed toes. The land is flat, and the views are awesomely extensive. Horses, herds of cattle, a white cluster of grain elevators rising as gracefully as Greek temples are visible long before a traveler reaches them. Holcomb, too, can be seen from great distances. Not that there's much to see, simply an aimless congregation of buildings divided in the center by the main line tracks of the Santa Fe Railroad, a haphazard hamlet bounded on the south by a brown stretch of the pronounced Arkansas River, on the north by a highway, Route 50, and on the east and west by prairie lands and wheat fields. After rain or when snowfalls thaw, the streets, unnamed, unshaded, unpaved, turn from the thickest dust into the direst mud. At one end of the town stands a stark old stucco structure, the roof of which supports an electric sign, Dance. But the dancing has ceased, and the advertisement has been dark for several years. Nearby is another building with an irrelevant sign, this one in flaking gold on a dirty window, Holcomb Bank. The bank closed in 1933, and its former counting rooms have been converted into apartments. It is one of the town's two apartment houses, the second being a ramshackle mansion known, because a good part of the local school's faculty lives there, as the teacherage. But the majority of Holcomb's homes are one-story frame affairs with front porches. Okay, so as you were reading, hopefully you were able to identify repetition. If you were not, I'm going to help you with the first set of repetition. When I read, I noticed that the town of Holcomb was mentioned several times in accordance with synonyms for town. So first, I noticed village. So I'm going to highlight village yellow. Again, we had a reference to the city of Holcomb as a hamlet, which is another term for village. And then we called it a town, and I'm going to highlight that yellow. Okay, so why would an author who is describing one place call it a village and a hamlet and a town? Well, what are some of the connotations that are connected with village, hamlet, and town? I'm going to add a comment so that all of my thoughts are in one central location. So I'll move the screen over so you are able to see what I'm typing in my comment regarding repetition. Okay, so we said that village, hamlet, and town were some of the words that were repeated. It repeated an idea that has certain connotations. When you think of a village, you think of community, you think of maybe homespun, unity. And unity, it creates a peaceful mood or feeling. Because part of what we want to do is think about how rhetorical techniques actually impact the audience, and we are the audience today. Okay? So referring to Holcomb as a village and a hamlet and a town makes us feel a certain way as an audience. Okay, we feel peaceful. We feel, and I'll say peaceful and calm. Okay, now let's take a look at additional repetition. We refer to the area surrounding Holcomb as a plain, which is a flat land. There's no mountains and hills, no up and down, just straight level ground for the most part. Additionally, we said straight out or directly in the text that the land is flat. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight that idea of level, flat, unchanging is repeated there. And then let me see if I can find one more. I do believe that there was one more, maybe they call it a prairie in the second paragraph. Yes, prairie lands, which again are flat lands without hills or bumps or rises. Okay, so when you think about land that's level and flat, how does it make you feel as an artist? Well, I'm going to move this over so you can see again. In terms of level, flat lands that don't change, I'm going to focus on the unchanging part. So I'm going to say that in terms of plains, there's a sense of safety when things don't change. Safety, security, unchanging. And so how does that impact the audience? It lulls them almost. So it lulls us into a sense of calm, as we said before. And we already mentioned safety and security. Okay, so now let's take a look at overstatement. Let's take a look at overstatement. Okay, so I'm going to move the screen over so we can highlight our example of overstatement. Well, in the first paragraph, we referred to a cluster of grain elevators where they store grain as graceful Greek temples. And as you know, a temple is a place of worship. So it is somewhat of an overstatement to coin a grain elevator a graceful Greek temple. So why would an author use language to create the image of a Greek temple in this town or this small village where nothing seems to change and there's nothing there that stands out? Why would Truman Capote create that image? Well, let's think about that. I'm going to insert my comment and move the screen so that you can see as I type and speak. Well, he might have used overstatement in this case to suggest a small town actually does indeed possess improbability. Got to do my double S there. So there is a chance that what you see is not always what you get. Improbability. Okay, so that is one idea related to why the author used overstatement. But how does it impact the audience? Well, it definitely got my attention and is making me think now that maybe this town isn't as peaceful as I once thought. So it gets the audience's attention while cluing them in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fix this. That should be the audience's attention while giving them a hint that the town may not be what it appears on the surface. So now I have some idea that maybe something is going to happen in this town unexpected. Okay. So we've looked at repetition, we've looked at overstatement. So we're going to still look at parallelism and understatement. So let's go ahead and take a look at, we looked at overstatement. Let's look at the parallelism. Okay. So we have parallelism here. I'm going to go ahead and highlight unnamed, unshaded, unpaved. Okay. And we want to look at what that might mean for the audience. How does that impact our understanding of what we're reading? Well, this is really all about the setting, the environment that Holcomb has. And when we look at unnamed, unpaved, and unshaded, how does it make me feel? Well, it goes to, I guess it characterizes the town, because that's what it does first, characterizes the town as insignificant. It's like it's not an important place. And the use of those three adjectives in a row creates the parallelism, and it draws attention to the fact that the place is insignificant. The streets aren't even important enough to be named. Well, how does that make me feel? Well, as an audience member, I feel that I feel kind of like at first I was at ease in the beginning, and now I'm slightly bothered by the towns. I'm not sure what I would call it. I might say the town's unimportance. I think it erased my other information, but that's okay. Okay, so now we've looked at repetition, we've looked at overstatement, we've looked at parallelism. So the only thing left to look at would be understatement. Okay, so when we talked about in the first paragraph, Kansans call the plains of western Kansas out there. So that's nondescript. It really doesn't define anything, describe anything. It's definitely an understatement. Surely there must be something there that might be a better description for an area where there is grass and land and opportunity for growth, for expansion. We're just going to call it out there. So the author is communicating something to us by using that term. It's an understatement for what we're talking about. We're talking about the plains of a state. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a comment here to record the thought or the impact that this understatement makes on the audience. So it creates a certain type of obscurity. I mean, because it's so non-specific, it creates that sense of security. And what it does for the audience is it lulls us into a sense of timelessness, almost a sense of floating. Okay. And I guess I must have accidentally erased the last comment. So you've had the opportunity to think about literary nonfiction analysis, dissected into rhetorical techniques, specifically repetition, overstatement, understatement, and etc. And now you can move into practicing on your own. Thanks.